All right, so Proctor, why don't you tell us about your experience with Safehouse and what that looked like, how you were approached, and from a protest perspective, what it looked like, and then also from a business perspective, what you did there, how you brought in other people, and just kind of take us through that whole thing.
Yeah, so at first, I had reached out to Peter because you had told me about how he was texting you wanting me to record the event. And so you let me know that it would be a cool opportunity. And so I reached out to Peter that same day. And then he immediately told me that he would like be interested in me recording and that he wanted me to record a promo of a video. And so he like sent me some videos of some of the performers and I created like a promo video for the event. And then on Sunday, when I got there, there was like people already there protesting, and it was at the Capitol. And so it was kind of like a continuation of the protest. And I brought my two friends, Destiny and Joy, to kind of help me record just in case. And I brought like all the equipment just in case, not knowing if I would need it or not, just to be extra prepared. And so when we had got there, we had just set up the cameras. I didn't need to mic anybody because we were so close to the speaker and everything. And then, yeah, a lot of people ended up coming. Even a celebrity, Mike Posner came and like tweeted about it and everything. And so it was really like cool. It was like filled. The Capitol was filled with people all the way down to the grass. The performers were really good. They had a lot of. It was mainly just poets and singers, but they were all really really good, and it was really empowering. They even had like everybody under 21 go up to the stage to emphasize how the youth are like fighting for a better future. And yeah, we were just trying to really kind of emphasize like it was like a space for healing because everything that happened. So I guess like that night was really just about healing, like letting everybody heal from like all of the trauma that's been happening. And then they also really emphasized taking action beyond just protesting, like calling um, any anybody that's like a representative or um, something like that, and just to kind of like push like making actual real change in the system. So it was really cool getting to record that.
What was the process like for you to kind of one of my goals for you all of you guys, and I think your goals for yourselves too, are kind of to make sure that this it doesn't just stop with you and perpetuates out from there. What was the process like that you were by yourself doing this recording, meaning that you were in charge, that this was basically your first gig as your own company and your own business? What was it like bringing other people in and kind of taking them under your wing and having them help you and support you and feeling the responsibility of that and the pride that comes with that? What was that whole experience like, and the potential that in the future when you're being paid for these type of gigs that could be something also that you can help them monetarily?
Yeah, I was definitely really nervous. I thought I would mess up somehow. So it was nice having like somebody there to like be there with me. Yeah, at first I had asked Destiny to come just to like be there, like 'cause I thought she would want to come, but then I realized that she can actually help me a lot with it because there would be a lot of equipment I had to carry. And like there was like a time where I thought that I would have her watch the camera so that I can go like backstage with the performers and mic them because I didn't know how the sound would be, but I didn't need to do that. But it was just nice having her there. I like showed her how to like I like gave her a quick overview of the tripod and how to use that, and so I like had to be put into that teacher mode, which it makes me understand what I'm doing more when you have to teach someone something. That's like a realization that like I've come a long way from what I used to know about cameras and everything. So it was really cool.
And then, so it's documented, and I want to give you feedback on it too. When you presented that you did this, one of the things that you talked about first was kind of the technical side of it and how you felt that went for you. Can you talk about that, and now how you're feeling about that? So anything that you felt wasn't perfect and why you felt that, and kind of your reflection on that, and what you really do think is important now.
Yeah, so I always worry about like perfection and like getting everything like good looking good. And so at first I was like taking forever to figure out what the right white balance would be since I was outside and the light kept changing and it was like 6, so it was like slowly getting darker. But I just set it to auto, especially because if I was gonna let Destiny watch the camera, I didn't want her to have to worry about like the light changing. So at first I just set it to auto white balance, and then I realized like I don't really have to worry about that. I would just have to like periodically stop the recording and like make the ISO higher because it did start getting darker. But I remember that I was like really worried about it, like the exposure, because I thought that some shots were too bright and some were too dark. But then I realized like it mattered. Like Dr. Clarke had told me that what matters is that it was recorded, and like a lot of people that aren't camera videographers aren't gonna notice like if the exposure is a little bit too bright or a little bit too dark. Like people won't notice those things. They really care about if like they can relive the moment and watch it, and as long as like good moments are captured is what really matters. And so I'm glad that I recorded it still.
And especially in these moments, right, that you have that you're capturing something really important. This isn't like for, commercial success. This isn't something that's going to be, that the goal of it is to, yeah, really be as beautiful as possible. The rawness of this, the realness of what's happening, and the importance of being able to share it quickly is more important, so you can have an impact on it, in a really positive one. I like that you talked about that it was healing. And Peter, who put this on, who's a former student at the same school that you guys went to in high school and is now at Howard. Uh, he is 21, 22, 20. Like the youth put this together, which is really exciting too. And that the fact that they had even younger people come up on stage is exciting, because I think this is really a movement that needs to be led by the youth. And that's how real change is going to happen. Um, I like that there was follow-up steps, political follow-up steps, and that's one thing that I want to work on quickly, is getting someone who is an expert in politics to kind of talk to you guys and your peers, so that people can get more politically active and see what that looks like, and see how that can change things. Um, and so, good job being there. Again, good job taking it out on your own, and you just learned so much from your own, and you did a great job, I'm sure now. And in 1 year, you're going to do an even better job with all the experience that you're going to accrue before then. And it's just something where you took an opportunity and you ran with it, and that's something that I really want you to encourage too. Um, One thing that we're going to be running into, I think, very soon is too many opportunities, and so that's something I've talked to you guys about in the group chat. Is they're starting to, because of our success currently, which is still so small scale, we're still already getting a lot of different things that are coming up for you. So really picking which ones that you're passionate about, and this goes for me too. First of all, being okay saying no. You guys have a full-time life, full-time. There's a lot going on in all your lives and my life, and so saying no is okay. If you say no right away, if you know it's a no and you say no right away, it's going to be much easier for you in the long run, rather than kind of lying or pushing people off and then kind of having to come up with an excuse later. And no one is going to fault you for, and if they do, they're the whatever, for working on something like this that's going to be bringing you in real money. So that's something you need to prioritize. If there's interviews where you're going to be making money for them, you need to prioritize that, even obviously over even meeting with us, right? If you could be interviewing someone right now, and that's the time to do it, and you're going to be getting paid for that, then you need to prioritize that, and prioritize that for yourself and your family. And then also, you need to start weighing the impact of the things you're doing, the time commitment that's needed from you, and how much impact that could have on the actual world and the things you want to move forward. You do have good relationships with a lot of people, so people will, as we get even more successful, come out and try to connect with you, and have you do different things for them. And so you can be creative with the ways that you do help and support people. And so that's something that we really need to talk to someone about that is really successful, so that they can kind of help us dictate that too, and determine how you want to handle that. And you can kind of come up with a set of principles on how we're going to handle stuff initially, so that you can have that going into these conversations. On that front, yes, sir, you had other exciting news too about different people reaching out to you. Do you want to share that with the group?
Um, I think that last week I talked to this girl that Peter knows from Howard, and after talking to her, she connected me to another dude who graduated in 2019, but he's part of this nonprofit organization that helps young people with stuff like making a LinkedIn and stuff like kind of like what we're doing, but more like broad, like anybody can kind of join. And he was talking about me joining the program, but he's like he's gonna go see if it's possible. And then he's also going to see if he can reach out and find some mentors in the Denver area that can also connect to and also, help out with what I'm doing. Yeah.
Awesome. And so then again, just driving home that point, if I hadn't reached out to Peter and asked him that, was originally asking him to connect you with really strong Muslim women. And I reached out to several different sources, and we've connected you with some amazing women already. And then what you need to know about networking again is then they have their whole network too, right? And now that they're connected with you, everywhere they're going, if they see a contact with you that could benefit you, then they will connect you with other people too. And so that's just how this works and how the world really works. And this is something that I wish I would have learned earlier. And often it works in a very privileged way, right? Privileged people are able to connect with other privileged people and use that. What I want to do with this company, and I want you to do with this, is turn that on its head, meaning that like use those typically privileged institutions for your benefit. And so things like that, this network now, right? We're in a time where certainly America is really reflecting on a lot of different things, that the way that it's run, and people are seeing the trauma that's been caused in the Black community. And so with that, there's an opportunity for the Black community to really rise up and connect. People are wanting to invest in the Black community of all creeds. The Black community is really staying tight knit and wanting to invest in the Black community too. And so you'll have all these connections of people looking to connect in a way that they were not previously. And so there's opportunities in that too. And opportunities again to use whatever status you have to help other people. So that's something that you can do, and it sounds like that they're doing with their work too, which is amazing. Um, I want to talk real quick about my protest experience. And so my wife saw, and I didn't even see this. I'm currently like not on social media because everything I'm doing is focusing on Mama Bird and what we're doing here, and which has been refreshing in a lot of ways. But my wife saw about and kind of too, then this is a privilege thing, is I'm not out protesting and marching due to my privilege and how it doesn't impact me directly, really, when I reflect on it. But also, this is where I can make the biggest impact. I believe I'm making a bigger impact with you guys and the impact that you're going to make on the world than any other way. So if we do this really well, to me, this is going to have a lasting impact on the world, and that's where I want to invest my time and energy. But my wife saw a protest for the Denver Public Schools teachers that was downtown the other day, and so we went to that. And uh, I'm still not comfortable, which is also a privilege thing, I think, being around like huge groups of people. And so we still wear face masks in public, which everyone at this protest did have. And we still keep our distance, which the people were doing a good enough job of keeping their distance, but not perfect. There's still a lot of people in a small space. Um, and so I think this was organized by Tay Anderson, and there was specific instructions that if you don't protest, park along the side and basically encourage people. And so that's what we did. It was really important for my wife to have our kids down there. So again, our kids are 6 years old, and we've got a son that's 6 years old and a daughter that's 3.5. And so having them down there and showing them what people are capable of and what people are fighting for, having conversations with them about what's going on, and that basically the simplistic version that we're telling to our 6-year-old and who can kind of understand it is that people are treated differently based on the color of their skin, and specifically people with dark and black skin are treated poorly by many different facets of society, and that the police who are sworn to protect these people often are hurting the people that they're sworn to protect. And so these conversations are ones that I feel I wouldn't have had because of my privilege if I was unaware of this previously, which is a really good thing. So our kids will grow up with that mindset. We talked about Donald Trump a lot, and my kids are very interested in that and why he is the president, which is a hard thing to explain. And so our kids got to see this protest. And so we cheered on the people. A couple different things about it. It was very peaceful. It was very white. So the teachers of Denver Public Schools are very white, and so that just was so clear to me too. And white people that are allies, white people that are protesting, white people that really care, but so white. And so that's something that we need to figure out systems to have teachers of color in these classrooms so that we can really move our society forward in that way. We saw a lot of people we were connected with. So I saw multiple teachers that I taught with in the past that were protesting. My wife saw multiple teachers that she's working with and taught with in the past that are protesting. We saw one of our neighbors down there, which was nice. And so there was a lot of people. I don't know how many people, but there were a lot of people. The police were kind of escorting the protesters down the street, which was an interesting visual. And I couldn't help to think, though, that this was I don't know. It was very peaceful and organized in a way that privilege lets happen with the teachers. And so I think that the police probably signed up in a second to work on this detail because they knew it would be peaceful and they could kind of just zone out and not be ready to do their job or whatever it is. It was just a different situation, and not necessarily one that creates real change the same way that other protests are, where it's more active and more stuff is happening that's pushed the envelope. And I think there's a place for both of them. But it was really a reflective experience for me to realize again, even more, even though I'm doing all this work to try to not denounce my privilege, but use it to help you guys, that I still am able to hide in my privilege in so many ways and still am not affected by this stuff enough to do even more or whatever it is. And so I'm kind of trying to figure out, and I wanted to say that to you guys because I am aware of that, and I'm still growing at 40 years old and still learning at 40 years old. My mom just came to town, which is wonderful, and we were having deeper conversations about race and what's going on in America than we ever have. And so that's happening on the white world front, which is a good thing. My mom has been out protesting for years against Republicans, basically, and the ones that she lives near in California, who one of them went to jail for corruption and cheated on his wife and stole money from his campaign and bought all this stuff, and then still, I believe, was reelected, maybe, and is going to prison soon. Like just the ridiculousness of who is running the world in so many ways. So she's been fighting for that. She's been fighting for her grandkids, fighting for the environment, but not necessarily on racial issues yet. And so that's something too, where we're having these good conversations that I don't think happened previously, that I think is powerful. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys. It's going to be, I think there's going to be a lot more happening, and people like Peter and people like Tay Anderson are organizing these events. There's a lot of amazing young people. I just saw something that I think there were 14 or 15-year-old women, and I forget where it was, that organized this huge rally somewhere in the South. And so that's wonderful. They're tearing down Confederate statues in different places. And so let me ask you guys, do you feel that there's some movement going on with this movement? Do you feel that like real change is happening currently? What are your thoughts and feelings on it?
I think real change is happening because they've opened up a lot of cases that weren't previously open, and they've I think that they've opened up the Breonna Taylor case, and then the only reason why I feel like the officer from George Floyd was charged was because of the protests. So
I saw this post that listed everything that happened in the past week from the protests. And then they were like, if we can make this much change in 1 week, imagine how much more we can do in the next weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, there's talk about defunding the police. Actually, there's actions being taken to do so. And then there's even talk about abolishing the police and implementing more mental health and more resources, which is an amazing thing. I mean, we're moving from hope. We're moving from a society that is more authoritarian and like violent to something more where okay, I acknowledge that you are my brother, you are my sister, you need I'm gonna help you get help, how can I see us moving towards something more of the lines okay, I see you're struggling, there's something going on here, what do you need to get past this? I mean, it's going to take time, but this uprise, this uprooting was needed, and it's honestly taking a little, I mean, it's going fast, but then again, it's going so slow, and it needs to like hurry up, like we need to, something needs to change. But yes, the protests have definitely helped. So, and I agree with Yusura about what that post said about, look at how much has been done in just a week. Like, imagine what can be done in X amount of time, So it's amazing.
You guys know yourself and your peers. Do you guys feel that your generation is different in some way by just the cards they've been given and um, the situations they've been given, and are really? Do you feel like this is your job to make these changes, and the young people are going to make these changes and lead? What are your thoughts on kind of the youth as a part of this movement?
I think the youth is tired. I think for the longest time we just hear all these things are happening, and here we are waiting for adults to do something. We're waiting for them to like help the environment. We're waiting for them to like do all these big things, because when you grow up, you like trust the adults. The adults know what they're doing. They know what's going on. But I feel like more youth and more people are noticing, okay, nothing's gonna happen unless we make something happen. And a lot of people, I know, like a lot of young people. I was thinking about that this morning when I was cleaning up, about how most of the people I've met in the past couple of weeks, that you've tried to connect me to, are around either like 18, 19, 20. They're very young, yet they're doing all these big things. And I think some youth do take it like as their responsibility. They're like, okay, no one else is doing it. No one else is fighting for this. So I'm going to go do it. Like for the Flint water crisis, I think she's like 12 or 13 years old, and she's like fighting for Flint to have better, cleaner water. Yeah, I think the youth is definitely like, okay, we're tired of adults trying to fix something when we can fix it, because they know that this, at some point, they're going to be in this world, they're going to be living it, and they don't want to live in a world where they don't feel safe, or where they're constantly worried about global warming. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the adults feel like they've already fought their fight. Um, and so a lot of the youth are kind of like in the because a lot of the youth are out in the world now, and we're the ones seeing what's happening. And so we're the ones that are seeing like it's our time to fight now. And so I see a lot of similarities, like with the way that we're like it's young people that are starting it, like how back in the 60s it was the young people. And like how we have like the people that believe in like the peaceful protests, and we have the people that like are rioting and looting and everything. But at the same time, I feel like it's more urgent because it has been happening for so long. And so, like, yeah, I feel like a lot of the youth are like, we need peace and justice, and we need it now.
I was watching a video of a young girl kind of like having this deep conversation with her parents, and her parents are just like shooting her down, like, no, you're not going to create change. I don't know why you're doing this, why you're behaving so crazy. And she was trying to get across the fact that she is informed, she does know the facts and the truth. And she said something like, for the majority, ignorance is bliss, but for the minority, ignorance is violence. And that's so true. And we see it in our own communities, and I think with the older generations, with a lot of people that I've talked to from the older generations, people who are, well, not Black, like Hispanic people who have the same skin tone as me and lighter, they're like, no, like, racism has always been here. It's never going to go away. There's nothing that you can do. And I feel like it is my job. It is our job to like, no, F that. There is change that's going to happen, whether you like it or not. We're going to make this happen. And if you don't feel that it's your job, then I'm just going to fight even harder. I feel like it's my fight as well. I grew up, well, let's see. well, yeah, I just want my kids to grow up in a world that they don't have to worry about being discriminated against because of their skin color, their brown skin, or fear that the world's going to end because of rising temperatures and global warming. So yeah, it's personal, you know. And when the adults, people older than us, say no, like there's nothing that you can do, I'm like, dude, how ignorant can you be? Like, I'm showing you these facts on facts on facts, and you're like, nope. They, like, a lot of people would rather be ignorant. So I think young people are just getting fed up. You know, there's this like globe, like amongst the youth, like there's this like internal like anxiety or like this fear, and yeah, we're just fed up. So it's personal.
How do you, or how do we as a society, which I think all of you are absolutely right, and there's been movements before led by the youth, and talking to my mom, who my mom was born in, she was basically a teenager and at your age basically during Vietnam, and just how that impacted people. And she said people had, and the difference, one of the difference between what's happening now is you guys can't be on college campuses where there is this really focus on change and this collectiveness about it. But you also have social media now where you're collective in a different way, which I think could be powerful. How can you ensure, or how does it look like to you guys that the youth not only makes change now, but they also keep pursuing those things? Because I think you all have stated it's going to take a long time to create real change, and these are not surface level issues. And there's going to need to be drastic change from a systemic level, which is going to take a lot of time and a lot of work and a lot of tough conversations and a lot of pain for a lot of people. And so, how do you, as young people now, try to keep that momentum and keep your principles? Because I think so many of the people who were protesting in the 60s were then now benefiting from the systems that are hurting you in so many ways, and it's able to be complacent, and you're able to be complacent. You also can say you fought your fight. You can say it's not going to change because you tried hard and it didn't change. How do you, as young people, keep that momentum and then make sure that that never goes away? What can we do now that can help that in the future?
I think that that's where it comes into like reaching out to politicians and people that have actual power in the system, and like kind of forcing them to change the laws, because it's within the system, it's within the government and everything. And so protesting is great and it brings attention to the issue, but I think it has to go beyond that. Like, we really need to work on trying to like change the system long term, so that we don't have to just keep protesting over and over. Because just because we protest, like, everybody knows that there's a problem. Like, even if people try to like ignore it, they know that there's a problem. And so like, we can't just only protest. I think we have to also like reach out to the politicians, reach out to representatives of the offices, figure out what it is that needs to be done to make the system work for everybody.
I think another important factor is teaching our younger siblings and our children, what's going on. Anybody with a brain is able to realize like something's not right, and the older generations sometimes choose to be ignorant, but with younger people and kids as well, there's like more energy and more passion, and it's important that we just raise them and teach them like the truth, and how to go about making change. That's also important. So teaching them like about getting into politics, or how to get the system to work for them, or fighting so that it works for everyone, so that you don't have to trick the system, but yeah, like for example, what you and your wife did, Clarke, you took your children out to the protest, and you had a very very honest conversation about like what's going on, you know. And that's, I feel like some parents fear that that's like too much for their kids, but I think it's very important. Like that's a privilege thing, you know. If you feel like, oh yeah, they're too young to be talking about this, they're too young to know about this, you know. That's and I've encountered some people who say that as well, who said that me and Sophia didn't need to be out there. I'm like, yeah, we did. She needs to know. She's going to know, you know. I'm going off on tangents here, but yes, starts with the youth, I suppose.
I definitely agree with what Janine said about how the youth have more energy and more passion. And I feel like as we get older, like our mind starts kind of fixed. I was listening to this one podcast about how youth are more likely to take risks and they're more likely to try new things. And then I was like, as we get older, we get more comfortable and start to settle down. So I think it's definitely more important it's not just about us, but also teaching our little siblings and our next generation of people, like Janine said. I think that will make the biggest impact is to keep passing it down, this passion, this fire and drive that we have. So that way this change doesn't just stop with us once we settle down or, you know, are going through our own lives. That way we will have our own kids out there in the future or something like that.
One thing I just thought of too that I think may be different about this time in this movement is you guys seeing the power of what young people can do and then not feeling like you're getting away from that. So in the next generations, I look at the Stoneman Douglas kids who really did an amazing job after the shooting and being politically active. And I don't think change was, or enough change was made at that moment, but I still think that helps even things like this where people are pushing back using their voice. And so with your generation, I think hopefully it's going to be different in the fact that when you are older, you will be empowering the youth as opposed to trying to take that power from them. And I think that that's a good point too. One thing that I am reflecting on too with this is I have a lot to lose, right? My life is, and that's a privileged thing too. I have a lot to lose. I've got young children. I've got a family. And the privileged part of this is not wanting to rock any boats that ruin my really good life that I have. And COVID has been a big eye opener for me on that front too. Like this is somewhat of an illusion. This could all go away. And with that was something that was really an impetus for me to do this with you guys is like, we need to capitalize on these moments and that 2020 is not something we want to forget, but something that we really can change the world and we can use this for good and not evil. And I think that all those things are really impactful. I think that you are not alone in this. There's so many amazing youth, and then it feels more collective, right? People are bringing each other up all together. It's not competition. If you're organizing a rally and someone else gets more or whatever, it seems like people are in this together, and really, especially when they're on the streets together, they're in this together, and there's a love for each other in a way that is so encouraging. And so that to me is also impactful about what's going on in this moment. For this, one other thing I wanted to share too, I saw a post that talked about the bus boycotts with Rosa Parks lasted like over a year, and that these other movements, it did take a long period of time. And so stuff is happening quick, but it's the same thing with like what we talked about previously. Overnight success happens, you know, after 10 years, and this kind of stuff has been going on hundreds of years. And so hopefully it happens faster. And that's one thing that I want you guys to get involved with too. Politics in some regard. One simple way that this world can change quickly is people voting, young people voting, if they're able to vote in this country. And so literally every single person we know needs to vote. And so how can we do that? How can teachers get their former students to vote and give them the resources to know how to do it? How can young people like you make sure to hold their friends accountable for voting and not just saying they're voting? How can we make that process less intimidating? How does education needs to change too, right? We should be teaching. That's one thing with me is like, if this hasn't shown us that political science should be taught every year and We should know the in and outs of our government, that history needs to be taught in a very different way than it is in America right now. And young people like Tay Anderson are leading that charge too, with the Denver school board. He's really pushing to have Black history be a part of um, everything. And then one of the responses to that is Black history is history, so it should be. And so it's something that's very whitewashed in this country, the way we learn history. And so that needs to change, and that kids are exposed to everything right away young anyways now. So don't sugarcoat stuff for them. They need to know about the hate that was part of forming this country and all these things. And so I think that can help make people more politically active too, and also make school more engaging. If you guys have, we're all good academic students, but you have many peers that are incredibly intelligent that did not engage in school. And so much of that too was just because the school didn't represent them, or they weren't learning about stuff that they were excited about or passionate about, or they didn't have teachers that looked like them that were teaching them about these subjects so they can learn from that. And so I think that there's so many avenues where this can change, and I think it's really going to be like a societal thing. And the other part that we're not talking about that is what we're doing here, and what I want to do really with Mama Bird interviews is make you guys money, because then that money does give you options and power. And once you have money to be able to make your own decisions and have money to be able to go the directions that you want to choose and invest that money back in the community, or invest it in yourself, and then change the people that are around you based on that, that'll create real change too. And I think that you guys have stated that before, that you feel like you're coming out into a world that there's not as many options for you or whatever. And so I think that's another part of it, is the money aspect of it. How do you see, and I guess let me just ask you, what is your experience politically up until this point? What have you learned about the political process? How many years of school did you guys learn about our government?
I learned about the government for one semester because it was a requirement, civics, and we learned about the legislative, the executive, the judicial branches. We learned about the different types of government. Yeah, that was only for one semester, and that's about it. That's as far as politics go in school. But on my own time, I try to do my own research and try to find out what's going on, so that way, like, I just don't like not knowing what's going on in the world, and I think it's important to know about our government and how things are ran. I feel like the more you know, the more power you have.
Yeah, same. I had one semester of economics and then we switched to a semester of civics, and that's all we really had. And so like I didn't really know much about the government at all. But after going into college and everything, I realized I've tried to distance myself from politics, but I've realized it's actually important to know about it so you can know what's going on, because I had a journalism class and we had news quizzes, and so I had to download the New York Times and read like the stories, and I had to watch the news more often. And so I realized like it's important to know about what's going on, because I realized how little I did know before and how little I still know.
Yeah, I have a lot to learn as well. I think I had maybe one semester that taught about politics and kind of, you know, all that. I didn't really realize the importance of it until I grew up a little bit. And even now, I still have a lot to learn, you know? Like, if you have all this anger and hurt about what's going on in the world, but you have no voice, or you have no knowledge about how to use your voice for good, what's the use of having a voice, you know? So yeah, that's something that I'm working on, is learning more about politics. I think everybody should.
And that's something where I really want to bring in, again, strong progressive political leaders to talk to you guys about that, because I think we can proliferate it through systems like this, through Mama Bird Media. And that's where I kind of see too this Mama Bird grad school stuff that you didn't learn in school, that's really important at a time when you're ready to learn it. So that's the other part of it too, is you could learn about, I mean, think about all the math you learned in your 12 years of education, which we focused on math instead of politics, right? Or other different things. But think about all the math you learned, what you've retained from that, which you still know because of your excitement to learn about it, and Now I do think there's a big opportunity because even younger students will be much more aware. I think pointing out the flaws in our system could be a huge part of that, and then how you have to change those flaws. For example, and I'm not sure on this, so fact check me on this, but I believe it's true that literally, so your representation, the amount of representatives you have, Congress people in this state is based off of, you know, population in certain areas, and the locations are very gerrymandered, so they're politically kind of been built to be one party or the other, and very ridiculously gerrymandered, like that you can draw your own boundaries around rich communities, white communities, to make them Republican, is ridiculous. And there are done on the Democrat side too, but not to that level. And so, but there's areas where there's this population of people that get certain representatives, and some of those areas are literally in areas where there's prisons, and so the prisoners are unable to vote. They're disenfranchised in most states, I believe. I believe Florida just may have overturned it, that if you were a felon previously, you're able to vote again, which you've served your time. You need to be able to vote, and your voice does still matter. And you should run for, you know, public office. I don't know if there's people who have been made mistakes in their past and then gone on and realized them and try to help other people that are in political positions, but they should be, because there's a lot of people that they represent that aren't represented. But anyways, these areas are based on population, and literally the prison population is counted for the representation, but they can't vote. And so they're typically in conservative areas. They have a prison that has a ton of people in a small space. The numbers are counted as people, but the representation, they don't get to vote, so they're not represented. So it's just an insane, like there's just these insane things that are going on in our country that people aren't aware of, or people don't know how to change. And so those kind of things that are just so obviously ridiculous and so obviously focused on helping a small percentage of people, need to change. And as young people are more educated about that, as young people of color are more educated about that and more powerful politically, I think those things will change. And so those kind of things too, there's so much that I don't know about our political system, and I kind of just learn when I want to. I learn through sources like National Public Radio, NPR, the political process. I learn about just different news sources, and often from social media news sources that other people post, but that we don't know how the system works. One of the things that we don't understand enough is local politics and how important that is. And we get excited about the president and vote for the president, and the president has a huge impact on you and our country as a whole in things like war, in times of crisis. But local politics really impacts you and is not as sexy and not as exciting. But still, there's still huge money in local politics, and that's ridiculous. There is political appointees on like everything, like the teachers union, for example, which impacts me as an educator. They have elections for who's going to run that and what their agenda is going to be and how they're going to work that and run that. And so that's an important thing for someone like me. I talked to you guys about the RTD board, the bus drivers association basically, was run by, and that's one of the things this documentary, Running with My Girls, features a woman who's running for, and I believe she won, to be a bus board member. And she, before, it was like an old white guy who never rode the bus. Like, this guy is running the bus system, and he probably thinks he's doing a great job because he's running it as a business, which is so often a kind of a white term, and focused on the bottom line and all these things, but not the experience of being a Black woman riding the bus at 11 o'clock at night or whatever it would look like. And so this woman can represent that, and just how important these positions are. And it's not for everyone, right? Not everyone, and that's something too. Not everyone is going to be a politician or wanting to be a politician, but everyone needs to be involved in some capacity. And then if you open the doors and encourage young people to be in these political positions, then they can change the world, because there will be people who stepped up. Lisa Calderon, who she's the number one person I want to have talk to you guys, and who she ran for mayor this last time and is now the chief of staff for Candy Baca, who's a county or city representative who's really fighting for progressive issues, currently defunding the police. So this woman, Lisa Calderon, when she gave her kind of opening speech, which is powerful, and she did it down in City Park, and I believe there's a statue of Martin Luther King there, but she focused on Martin Luther King gets his due, right? And he gets credit for a lot of things. But she focused on two people that were below on the statue, and I think it's Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth. I don't know how to say her name, but two strong Black women that were um, freedom fighters and that were um, way ahead of their time, and even when there was no voice for them, made a voice for themselves. And so she's like, women need to be represented in these movements too, and represented with statues. And one of her main things was she didn't want to be, she really didn't want to be mayor, and that was something that was not on her radar. But she literally could not do it anymore. Like, it's time, she had to do this. And I feel that that again, with a lack of privilege, that you need to change the world and feel this calling, is something that will come to a lot of people if they're exposed to this, if they see themselves in other things, and you'll just wake up other things inside people to make them even more great, and give them that access. And I think the youth is the answer to that. And for me specifically, I think women are the answer to that. I think that you guys look at the world very differently. I think that men have had their chance. I was just looking at putting together these promos, and for mine, I found myself talking about just how men have screwed up this world right now, right? This world it's not a woman thing, because men have made these decisions that have screwed up this world. And right now, I mean, Trump, they're still rolling back EPA regulations when obviously our world is hotter than ever and on fire. And every scientist in the world says, well, everyone, but a very small percentage say that climate change is real. We're peeling back regulations. And then we used to be a leader in the world, and so other people would follow what we would do. Now we're losing that credibility too, which is terrible, because it can't just be America; it needs to be the world. And so losing our foresight. So men have screwed up basically. So I think we need women to take over, and men can have a voice, but they need to take women's lead. And so that's what I want with you guys, is to be able to project yourselves forward and leap over people like me, and be able to take the lead on these things.